Folks, Paul Skenes is remaining dominant.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back to the Locked On Pirates podcast, everybody, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates every day. My name is Ethan Smith. You can follow me on Twitter at MVP_Ethan or at Locked On Pirates for all of your news, analysis, opinions, and reactions to everything going on in the world of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Thank you for always tuning into the show, as you always do every Monday through Friday. Obviously, as many of you caught on social media yesterday, I did the 12-hour drive from Georgia to Johnstown, Pennsylvania, where I am now residing. I am now living in the state of Pennsylvania, and I will be at the game tomorrow on Saturday. So if you're there, come say hi. Today's episode, by the way, brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Go win some free money. We'll have more on Prize Picks later today. And folks, right now, one of the bigger talking points, not only among the Pittsburgh Pirates, but among all of baseball, is how to handle pitching right now in this game. Because we've seen the likes of Sandy Alcantara and Spencer Strider and a lot of these other guys go down with Tommy John surgery. And we've seen the uptick in velocity over the years. We've seen a lot of different things pick up over the years now in today's game. And one of those things has been, how do you handle these guys? Well, how many innings should they throw? How should you go about calling up a top prospect? Oh, I don't know. The number 3 overall prospect in all of baseball in Paul Skenes. Well, it's kind of complicated because with a guy like Paul Skenes, you see what he's doing down in AAA right now, where yesterday, again, he brought another start with the Indianapolis Indians, a phenomenal one at that, may I add. And he's just been absolutely dominating AAA pitching. I mean, we've seen the 100-mile-per-hour fastball just light up AAA hitters right now. We've seen more strikeouts, more zeros in the run column. We've seen all these things already. And again, he's the number 3 overall prospect for a reason. This kid was considered to be a generational talent coming out of LSU, and he was the number 1 overall selection for a reason. He was paid for it for a reason, because this kid is just phenomenal. You look at what he did last night again. It was against St. Paul, and they win 6-5 overall. The Indians win 6-5. And he tied his professional career high with 8 strikeouts. Only allowed 1 hit in his work, over 3 1/3. And he had 2 walks in there too. But everything that we've seen so far from Skenes has been absolutely electric. His stuff is working. He's even throwing like some kind of fork ball that I very much of it have had an eye on. Sorry. And it's a pitch that he's like, okay, well, I'm going to try something new while I'm here. He's adjusting to a professional schedule. He's learning how to pitch every 5 days. Now, obviously, not pitching every 5 days at the level that you would want him to pitch, that being innings count and pitch count just yet. But when you start your professional career in 2024 with 12 2/3 frames of scoreless baseball, with 27 strikeouts in those innings so far, that's insane. And that's nuts. I mean, it just really is. And what's even more nuts is, and this was from MLB.com talking about it yesterday, Tacoma's Jonathan Diaz is the player he's knotted with in strikeouts at 27 in all of minor league baseball. Well, Diaz has pitched 24 innings. So Diaz has pitched nearly double the amount of innings that Paul Skenes has pitched in AAA, and they have the same amount of strikeouts. But this isn't about Jonathan Diaz. It's about Paul Skenes. And one of the bigger questions that has been floated around about Paul Skenes and what he'll be doing and how the Pirates are going to handle him. Well, let's look at what he's doing right so far. So far, he's just done great things with the four-seam fastball. We knew that the four-seam fastball was going to be a pitch that he was going to use quite a bit. It's one of his better pitches. It's one of the pitches that he's going to continue to use throughout his professional career. And last night, it averaged 100.5 miles per hour with 34 of his 43 pitches being four-seamers. And Hunter Green, again, this is from MLB.com, only Hunter Green has thrown more triple-digit fastballs in a single major league outing. That is nuts. Skenes is insane. He just is. And he's actually been getting whiffs on his other pitches as well. I mean, you look at the slider he's going to combo that fastball with more often than not, and the changeup. He already has 3 pitches that he can really look at and say, those are pitches that I trust. 4 came from the 4. He had 11 whiffs last night, folks. I looked this up. He had 11 whiffs on the evening. 4 of those came from the four-seam fastball. 3 came from the slider. And 3 also came from the changeup. That's nuts. And when your strike whiff rate, called strike whiff rate, is above 30%, yeah, folks, you're going to be pretty good. He was at 33% last night. Now, as far as you handle Paul Skenes, you know what he's doing right. He's using the fastball, the slider, and the changeup to miss bats. He's striking guys out. He's limiting base runners. Hasn't allowed a run yet. He's doing a lot right. The biggest question, though, surrounding Paul Skenes is not what he's going to do right and how good he's going to be. He's going to be a phenomenal talent. We know this already. But it's really, how do the Pirates handle Paul Skenes? What do they do? How do they manage this guy? And that's been the biggest question so far. And so far, and it's pretty evident on what they're doing with Skenes, he's pitched about 3 to 3 1/3 innings every single outing. He's on a pitch count, and he's on an innings count. And with what's going on in baseball with pitchers' arms just exploding right now, this is good for baseball. This is good for the Pirates that Ben Cherington is doing this right now. And Ben Cherington spoke about it on 93.7 The Fan recently and said, we don't want to go from 0 to 100 right away. Paul's so important to us long term, so we want to be really thoughtful about that. You know who else wants this and wants teams to handle their pitchers like this? The MLB Players Association, because they also understand what's going on right now with these pitchers throwing their arms out because of increased velo numbers and spin rates and all these other things that are causing elbows to just pretty much explode. And when you take all that into account, which you should take all these things into account. A lot of people, and Marco Gonzales just went down, and that was announced yesterday that Quinn Priester is set for his 2024 debut today, which we'll talk about that shortly. Paul Skenes does not need to be a major league pitcher yet. And I know that can be very tough to hear. That can be very tough to, say, well, he's already MLB ready. Oh, yeah, 100%. He is an MLB ready pitcher. He is an MLB pitcher. But at this exact moment in time, at April 19th, 2024, he is not ready to be a full-time Major League Baseball, Major League pitcher. He cannot go 6 to 7 innings consistently right now, and you feel safe about that. There's no way that you feel safe about that at all, especially as Pirates fans, because the one example that I will continue to use on why the Pirates are handling Paul Skenes with such care and why they're handling Jared Jones with such care this year. Johan Oviedo is the most clear example of this. He went well over his career pitch count last year. He looked phenomenal in doing so. Don't get me wrong. He looked really good in doing so. But then he had to get Tommy John surgery because you can't, and I mean cannot, just increase a guy's innings count by 60 to 70 innings and expect them not to have some forearm tightness or some elbow tightness or bruising. It's going to happen. It's almost inevitable that this kind of stuff is going to happen. But if the Pirates and Ben Cherington and Derek Shelton, who are getting this information from other sources, they're getting this information from people that really know what they're talking about in the medical field, then they're going to do everything they can possibly do to prevent it. And that's what they're doing with Paul Skenes. So if you're wondering when you can expect Paul Skenes to come up, well, it's not all that difficult. He's going to stay at 3 innings probably for the remainder of April. Once the calendar turns to May, he'll probably ramp up to 4 in the early part of the month. And once you start seeing Paul Skenes get to 5, once they start throwing him at 5 innings, compare it almost to a rehab assignment in a way. Compare it to a rehab assignment where you're saying, okay, well, Yasmani Grandal right now is probably going to catch 5 innings, which I believe he did the other day. Then they're going to move him up to 7 and then move him up to 9. And then when they feel like he's okay, he'll come up. That's what they're doing with Skenes. They're just easing him into the process because remind yourselves that are also listening to this show, remind yourselves this is his first full professional season on a professional schedule. What he was doing at LSU is not a professional schedule. What he's doing now is pitching every 5 days. And with the hype around him, how good he is, and everything that surrounds Paul Skenes, it is going to be expected that he goes out and pitches every 5 days. And if you could prevent him from having to be in a hospital, getting his elbow worked on, do whatever you need to do. And that's what they're doing right now is they're being careful. They're being cautious because this is just something that not only the Pirates have to worry about, but every other team in baseball has to worry about. We just saw Al Leiter debut the other day for the Texas Rangers. You don't think they're worried about it? All these other pitchers that the Pirates have in the system, Hunter Barco, Bubba Chandler, Anthony Solometto, they're going to treat these guys the exact same way because they recognize that across baseball right now, there is an issue with Tommy John surgery. Does it start at the MLB level? That's a whole different conversation. But they're being careful with Paul Skenes. He's dominant. And you can make the argument, maybe he doesn't have anything to learn in AAA. And what I would tell you is he's learning on the fly about how to handle pitching every 5 days. And I would rather him do that down there, ramp himself up, keep himself healthy, because at this point with pitchers, availability is just as good you are. Truthfully, availability may eventually become more important from a starting rotation in a bullpen than some of these super elite guys. And if Paul Skenes is available by the time late May, early June rolls around, and you don't have to send him back down, and you don't have to shut him down later in the year, it's going to lead to more wins for the Pittsburgh Pirates, and that's the most important thing. Folks, there's another young pitcher who we got to see last year, didn't have the greatest year, and that's Quinn Priester. But he's set to make his 2024 debut this evening against the Boston Red Sox. He's made some adjustments in the minor leagues. How can they translate? We'll talk about that shortly. But folks, first, we'll hear from FanDuel. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel.com/lockedon is all for you to win some money on some sports betting this season because it's playoff time in the NBA and NHL, and baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, FanDuel is offering new customers $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 if you win or lose. And you can bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win, because FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook and an official sponsor of the Locked On Podcast Network. And folks, also, don't forget to check out Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the hustle and bustle. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And folks, again, it's Friday. Happy Friday from beautiful Pennsylvania. I am very happy to be here. The drive went well. Thank you all for asking about that yesterday. I was very West Virginia. I've done that drive before. Well, I didn't physically drive it, but very interesting going through that state. And currently right now in Johnstown. But again, I will be in Pittsburgh tomorrow. So if you want to come say hi, come say hi. You know me. You guys saw me on opening day. Just come say hi. I love saying hi to everybody and talking to everyone about Pirates baseball. And one of the big things surrounding Pirates baseball right now is the Pittsburgh Pirates calling up Quinn Priester from the AAA Indianapolis Indians to start presumably today. It still says to be determined on all of your airwaves, but it will be Quinn Priester taking the hill in the beginning of the series against the Boston Red Sox, which we will preview in the final segment of today's show. But very interesting. A lot of people saw Marco Gonzales obviously goes to the 15-day IL. Lots of people are wondering, okay, is this where Skenes comes up? No, Skenes was never coming up. Priester was going to be the guy the whole time. Skenes was scheduled to pitch yesterday. Priester would have been scheduled to pitch today in Indianapolis, so he's on schedule. And Quinn Priester so far in AAA, he's done some pretty good things. He's made some adjustments in AAA from what we saw last season. Right now, he's a 3.95 ERA guy in his 3 starts for AAA Indianapolis, 20 strikeouts to 5 walks, 13 2/3 innings, has only allowed 1 home run. That was one of his bigger bugaboos that he had last year, is that he was allowing the home run ball just a little bit too much. And just to remind everybody, he did have quite the season last year. 10 games at the major league level, obviously last season. Went 3-3, 7.74 ERA at 8 starts, struck out 36 to 27 walks was a big issue with his command. He also allowed 12 homers in 50 innings. So you can kind of get the idea that bringing Quinn Priester back is, one, just a matter of him being available. And 2, you're looking at Quinn Priester as a potential guy that could be a helpful guy moving forward. He's a guy that you look at and say, yeah, Quinn Priester, if he can figure it out, maybe he ends up being a back-end starter in this rotation. Maybe he ends up being a long relief bullpen arm that they can trust. And that's something that's interesting. But one of the bigger things that I think that we've seen so far from Quinn Priester is the fact that the velo numbers are up. The velo numbers are up. He's bringing those numbers up. And again, you heard me mention 20 strikeouts to 5 walks. Command and velo were his big issues last year. Very big issues. And Priester is a pitch to contact guy. He's not a big strikeout guy. He's never going to have those elite strikeout numbers that we've seen from the likes of Jared Jones and Mitch Keller and Paul Skenes so far. But when you look at it this way, he's done pretty well in that department so far this year. He's struck out 20, as I mentioned, only 5 walks allowed, and he's generated 45 swings and misses through 3 starts. And a large part of that can be attributed to not only what he's been doing with the fastball velo, but what he's been doing with a curveball, the curveball that he loves to pair with the fastball quite a bit. He likes to use that pitch a lot, and he's increased the usage of it a lot this year. Last year, and this is all from StatCast. StatCast, the single greatest MLB website of all time. He only threw breaking pitches 13.2% of the time last year in those 10 starts. This year, 22.5% of his pitches in Indianapolis have been the curveball. That's good. That's a good thing, because if you're getting the swings and misses with your breaking pitch while also increasing your fastball velocity and keeping the command going, well, Quinn Priester could end up being quite the player. And if you guys remember last year, I was talking about Quinn Priester and a lot of people were panicking about him. And I was kind of cautioning people to let them know and say, hey, Mitch Keller didn't have it all figured out right away either. And maybe Quinn Priester could follow that same mold and that same trajectory. And so far, the usage of the curveball, the fastball command, and the velo have all been there. And now he comes up to face a Boston Red Sox team that offensively has had its issues. It's been a team that's been highlighted more by pitching, which we'll talk about in the series preview. But how do these things translate? Well, just pitch like you're pitching in Indianapolis. The mound's the same. Players are different. But for Priester, I think confidence would be the biggest thing that I could say for him. Confidence will be huge. And if he can just translate that fastball velo over and continue to use that breaking pitch at the usage that he was using it in the minor leagues, he should be just fine. Now, what should we expect tonight? Nobody knows. But he has had improvements in the minor league so far. He's looked relatively good. If you've had a chance to tune into any of the games or even watch any of his highlights, he's looked relatively good. And if he can come up, give the Pirates a couple of good starts until Marco Gonzales returns, then that's a very good thing. And also, say another pitcher goes down, if Priester does end up pitching relatively well up here in the majors this year, then there's your option until Paul Skenes is ready. Because the starting rotation through the first 19 games was a unit a lot of us were scared of. So far, it's been one of the strengths of this ball club. I mean, even Bailey Falter has looked relatively good for the Pittsburgh Pirates so far this year. So Quinn Priester will make his 2024 debut tonight. I'd expect 5 innings. That's what I would be my expectation. 5 innings, couple earned runs maybe. Maybe he goes out there and shoves. I don't really know. But what I'll be looking for are the things that I highlighted. The increased fastball velocity, obviously the command on the fastball, limiting the walks, maybe keeping the strikeouts, but again, he's more of a pitch to a contact guy, and use that curveball. It's a pitch that's working for him right now. It's eliciting swing and misses. It's missing bats. Keep using it. If it's a pitch that you can keep using, just continue to use it. And there's no reason why you should stop using it. But I think confidence is going to be the biggest thing for a guy like Quinn Priester entering this game. And yeah, I mean, he's already shown in the minor leagues this year that he's made some improvements. And if those improvements can translate, which sometimes they can, sometimes they can't, Pirates may have another good problem on their hands relatively shortly. Folks, we're going to preview the Red Sox series that we have on tap this weekend. But before we do that, folks, let's hear from Prize Picks. Today's episode of the Locked On Pirates podcast is also brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100 because Prize Picks is the #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in. Spring training is over and baseball season is officially underway. Don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond in your Prize Picks entries. Whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs, take your pick of more or less and add them to your Prize Picks entry today. You can also get in on the playoff action and win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks as you and the world's best players take the game to a new level during basketball's postseason. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100 at Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy with Prize Picks. And welcome to the third and final segment of today's episode of Locked On Pirates here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates every day. And your Pittsburgh Pirates are coming back to PNC Park for 7 straight games against the Boston Red Sox and the Milwaukee Brewers, And this is going to be an interesting series, I think. The Pirates obviously having a road trip that they would probably like to forget, featuring the Phillies and the Mets, where they lost 6 of 8 in that, including that series sweep to the New York Mets in Flushing, New York. Meanwhile, the Boston Red Sox, they enter this series losers of 3 of their last 4. They lost to the Cleveland Guardians, which right now is not exactly something to be really all that upset about, losing 3 of 4 to the Guardians, who currently have the second best record in all of Major League Baseball, only behind the Atlanta Braves. And what's interesting going into this series is kind of the reverse. It's kind of the reverse of what the Pirates, I think, expected their season to kind of go like to start out. A lot of people throughout the offseason were talking about more of the Red Sox offense than they were anything. And the Red Sox offense has not exactly been all that great, and it's going to be missing Tyler O'Neill and a banged-up Rafael Devers. Tyler O'Neill, who is a guy that's had a phenomenal start to his 2024, over 48 at-bats, a 1.209 OPS, and 7 homers. He's had a great start to the year, but he just went to the IL, the 7-day IL, retroactive, I believe they said, to Tuesday after a collision with Devers, who currently has a bone bruise. Rafael Devers, who's one of my favorite players in all of Major League Baseball, actually has not had the greatest start to 2024 either, slashing 188, 328, 375, and 703 with only 2 homers and 5 RBIs this year. So the Boston offense hasn't really been all that great. Tristan Casas and Jarren Duran are their RBI leaders at 9. Duran has been the team's batting average leader at 301. He's the guy to watch in this series that the Pirates are going to have to shut down and going to have to contain. And Duran, one of his big things too, getting on base, 366 on base percentage, 7 stolen bases thus far. But really where a lot of what you have to worry about with this Red Sox team right now is coming from the starting pitching and just everything overall with their pitching staff. They enter this series with the best ERA in all of baseball, a 2.70 ERA. Now, obviously, that's helped by the fact that you have 2 starting pitchers in the top 10 right now, currently in ERA, those being, of course, Cutter Crawford and Tanner Houck. Of course, Tanner Houck had that phenomenal complete game shutout against the Guardians in their lone win of the series. And the Pirates will see Cutter Crawford tonight, who currently leads all of baseball in ERA at .044. Meanwhile, you have like a guy like Kenley Jansen in the bullpen, who already has 4 saves and obviously has a phenomenal track record of doing very good things throughout his career as a Dodger and a Red Sox and everywhere that he's been. But really, when you look at this series, I think a matchup that I really want to highlight in this one is the Red Sox missing O'Neill and Devers being banged up. This is a Red Sox offense that leads all of baseball in strikeouts right now. It ranks 20th in walks. It is an offense that is just not really doing a ton. And the Pirates, who will throw Quinn Priester, Mitch Keller, and Martin Perez in this series, I want to see those guys attack early and often. I want to see them go after this offense because, again, it's an offense that just isn't doing all that much. And on the flip side, for the Pirates, I wrote a preview of this series over at Steel City Pirates, and part of it was asking who's cold right now. Well, the entire Pirates offense. I want to see the Pirates offense get back to what they were doing in that first week and a half, getting on base and taking advantage of the opportunities that were given to them. I mean, over the past 7 games, they've only averaged 3.2 runs per game. And this is, again, a Red Sox pitching staff that is relatively good right now. And we'll see what they can do. But I expect this to be a low-scoring series, a series that's going to feature a lot of good pitching. And when you get the opportunities, you're going to have to take them. And this also might be the first time the Pirates face all righties in a series. The Red Sox do not have a starter announced for Sunday yet, but we'll see what they decide to do. But I want to see the pitchers attack this Boston offense that's missing Tyler O'Neill and Rafael Devers, who's banged up right now. I want to see them attack that offense. Tristan Casas and Jarren Duran are really the only guys in that offense that truly scare me right now, outside of O'Neill and Devers, of course. And then I just want to see the offense get back to what they were doing well to begin the season. If they could do those things, they'll get back in the series win column, but we will see what they have in store for us this weekend here at PNC Park. And folks, thank you so much for tuning into the Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates every day. My name is Ethan Smith. You can follow me right there on Twitter at MVP_Ethan or at Locked On Pirates for all of your news, analysis, opinions, and reactions to everything going on in the world of the Pittsburgh Pirates. You can find this show free and available to you on YouTube and all of your audio platforms Monday through Friday. We'll probably have an episode tomorrow since I had the drive yesterday. I'll see you guys at PNC Park on Saturday. See you again on Monday. But until then, we'll see you on the flip side.